And we are, as a people, inherently and historically
Wake up.
opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
The show that asks questions about why we don't ask questions.
What the hell is going on?
This is Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. Welcome to Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. These are going to be the Conspiracy Queries, and I'm going to be the Alan Park for the entire length of the show. I don't know exactly how long it is, but, you know, it could be 10 minutes or an hour and a half, whatever you got time for. Anyway, big news here in Canada. If you don't know already, this is the home of Conspiracy Queries is Canada, Toronto at the moment. And perfectly timed, because I know most of you aren't Canadian and don't care. I do come at this show with the perspective of a person living in Canada. I don't apologize for that. I was born here. I continued to live here for some time. I don't apologize for that either. And I decided against living in different areas of the world. I don't apologize for that either. I'm just being silly right now, as I've been told I can be. But I am interested in bringing you this Canadian news, because this particular piece of Canadian news reverberates around the globe, whether you think it does or realize it or not. And that is that a couple of years ago, on Canada Day, we have a thing. It's a day on July 1st. Where we celebrate the name of our country. And other people go even further than that and celebrate some meaning that might be behind that name. And it's called Canada Day, July 1. It's always fun. Usually the weather is nice almost no matter where you are. And a couple of years ago, on Canada Day, a Canadian couple eventually was found guilty of planting homemade bombs outside of a government building in Canada. And immediately we went to the old, oh God, it's, Islamic terrorism, etc. And it turned out it was really just the unfortunately named John Nuttall, 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 and Amanda Korody, who kind of looks like Jennifer Jason Leigh on one of her not-so-great days. Anyway, they were arrested because on Canada Day, they really wanted to show it to us. They wanted to let us know what was happening. And they placed bombs, apparently. So this comes to us now from the fine Canadian newspaper known as The Guardian, from Britain, actually. It's not a Canadian newspaper. Canada Day bomb plot couple are freed after a judge rules... What? That police entrapped them. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because entrapment and lying and fiction is all part of the game. And let me just jump in here and add that we do have our second part of a conversation with Ole Dammegard, who has been on the show before, will be on the show again. And he went to the Norwegian island where the Anders Breivik killings were. And to get the whole story, you really should go back to episode 86 on conspiracyqueries.com. That's the part one of today's two-part false flag awareness show featuring Ole Dammegard. And he's telling us how things set out by governments aren't necessarily the truth, and then the government will take action to fix the problem with what that truth wasn't. Does that make sense? Okay, so they lie to us, and that's why Ole is on the show. And so considering he's on the show this week and talking about this very issue regarding Anders Breivik, and it spills across the international boundaries, we're also talking about, I love the RCMP. They've been getting so many things wrong lately, too. And if you're a female officer from the RCMP, Trigger warning, I may say the name of your boss who grabbed your ass and did some other things he wasn't supposed to do. Could be a trigger warning. So just be careful while you're listening to this. Landmark decision. In a landmark decision, a Supreme Court justice throws out the guilty verdict. Threw it out for John Nuttall and Amanda Carodi, calling the plot. Are you ready for this? And this is in quotes. A police-manufactured crime. That should be a term that we learn in school. Police-manufactured crime. Write that down. Google it. Find something you didn't know about it and get back to me. A Canadian couple found guilty of planting homemade bombs outside a government building will walk free after a court in British Columbia ruled the pair was entrapped by the RCMP into carrying out a police-manufactured crime. We need that on a T-shirt. John Nuttall, 41, and Amanda Carodi were found guilty of terror charges last year, 2015, after they planted, are you ready? Inert pressure cooker bombs on the steps of British Columbia's provincial legislature in 2013. Remember the pressure cooker bombs? That's what that whole thing was hanging around the Boston Marathon. They used the pressure cooker bombs because your mom was done making stew. Anyway, so they put those bombs on the steps of the British Columbia provincial legislature in 2013, just ahead of the Canada Day celebrations that, of course, draw thousands of people and firecrackers and all kinds of things. The verdict was thrown out after BC Supreme Court Justice Catherine Bruce said the RCMP had manipulated the two converts to Islam into carrying out the plot. This was a clear case of police-manufactured crime, Bruce wrote in her ruling. God, we've got to do a show on police-manufactured crime. That's just a wonderful topic right there. Happens every day. The world has enough terrorists. We do not need the police to create more out of marginalized people. The judge pointed to the couple's mental capacity to back the assertion that the crime had been instigated by police. The defendants also demonstrated that they were not very intelligent, gullible, and quite naive and childlike, she said of Nuttall and Carodi, who were dependent on social assistance to get by as they struggled to overcome emotional and addiction issues. This judge did say the couple posed no imminent threat, she said. To say they were unsophisticated is generous. Both had been facing a maximum sentence of life in prison. The judge sided with the defense's argument that the couple had been entrapped during a 5-month undercover police operation involving some 240 cops, they said officers. But 240 officers? What's the math on these 240 cops that manipulated and entrapped marginally intelligent people into carrying out a pressure cooker bomb attack on a public? Like, what's the dollar sign on this? They never tell you how much that cost. Without the police, it would have been impossible for the defendants to carry out the pressure cooker plan. Impossible. Thank you, officer. The police decided they had to aggressively engineer and plan for Nuttall and Carodi to make them think it was their own, said the judge. The defendants were the foot soldiers, but the undercover officer was the leader of the group. Now, I could go on, but I'm not going to because it sickens me. And we do talk about this a lot on the show and why they do it and how they do it. And, you can find this stuff yourself. This is on theguardian.com. Canada Day bomb plot couple freed after judge rules police entrap them. So that's what they do. They entrap people. Amazing. Like, you're living in a world where that really does happen.
No, but what happened actually was that when the police were on the way to the island, unfortunately, one of them managed to block his radio so that channel couldn't be used. Oh. Exactly like the one of the motorcycle police escort officers in the JFK caravan,
right.
We call it the motorcade. He blocked his microphone right outside the Adolphus Hotel, so that was jammed during the whole shootout and that. So exactly the same thing happens here. He jams that channel, so that is blocked as well. That's very unfortunate.
That's too bad.
But then when they finally comes to the island, then of course there's a massive big shootout between Breivik and the Delta team. Absolutely not. They call out his name, and he just puts down his gun, put out his arms to the side, and surrenders.
And how did they know who he was, what his name was at that point?
Very good question, Alan. Very good question.
I do try.
But he had called, before that, he had called twice to the police saying, I'm ready to surrender. He said, I'm Commander Anders Behring Breivik, ready to surrender, operation completed, ready to surrender to Delta team.
Huh.
Okay, but after he surrendered, when you look at the timeline, there's still shooting going on for about 5 to 7 minutes after he was captured.
Okay.
I would say that very strong evidence of multiple shooters. Yeah, and also with that helicopter you told me about, or you mentioned, that was flying around the island. They managed to get footage of the shooter going around killing youngsters on the island.
Wow.
But the person they have filmed is a southpaw. He shoots with his left. He's a left-handed guy. He's got a bald spot, and the police uniform that he is using is not the same that is being put forward as evidence. It's got the reflexes on a different position and so on. And when Breivik surrendered, he was in a wetsuit, but with a police emblem on the left shoulder and so on. When you compare, there's a footage taken by the Delta team of the guy that they arrested. Compare that with Anders Breivik. They look similar, I would say, absolutely not the same person. And also the guy that was arrested had a dark blue wetsuit on with no logo on the chest. But the photos taken of Anders Breivik when he's after he was arrested, it's a dark gray with a logo on the chest.
Different colored outfits. Different
color, not the same outfit. The first guy is quite butch, quite heavy set. Breivik is not. And the guy who left the van in a police uniform before the bomb exploded, he's quite slim. And when you compare the height of him with the height of the Volkswagen Crafter van, which is the one they have, he's shorter than Anders Breivik.
Why are they doing this? What was the reason?
Can I just continue a little bit more?
Absolutely, sure. At this point, I wonder how there hasn't been a larger outcry from Norwegians, the same way a lot of people in the United States of America don't really believe the 9/11 story and the Kennedy story. And I haven't heard that much of a backlash. Maybe that's just because I'm not as in tune with Norwegian media. But you've got an incredible list here of things that I would think they'd be concerned about.
Normal logic would say, why are people not standing in the streets screaming?
Yeah.
Why are the families of the victims not screaming out loud, just pulling their hair, saying, for God's sake, what is going on in our beautiful little country? How is this possible? But there's the official story, and that's it. When I'm on my way back and do a series of talks in Oslo, I've been warned to talk about this because it's too sensitive. I'm going to do it anyway, because I think the more you try and stop these things, the more important it is to expose.
Absolutely.
And also, I tell you, it's unreal what went on, because when the ambulance finally came to the island, the police held them back. They were not allowed to go and take care of these youngsters to start with. And one girl died on the island because she was not allowed medical assistance. There was a Delta team member sitting or standing by her side when she died.
Huh.
What is that?
Now, was this under the auspices of, don't go there now, it's very dangerous? Or what was the reason they told the ambulance folks they couldn't get in there?
They were just held back. They don't know why. And then when you look at the ammo that was used, because the number of shots that was fired on this island, Anders Breivik would have had to have like a donkey with him packed with ammo. But he's walking around with no ammo belts around the chest or nothing. He wouldn't have been able to carry it. That's just the logistic of it. It's too heavy.
Right.
Then you see what type of ammo was used, and it was the name of the manufacturer is Silvertip, and this ammo is something that explodes on impact. It's not a dum-dum. It just totally explodes, making massive damage to the body. And as far as I've been able to find out, it's not legally used by civilians nor military, and as far as I know, only used by special ops by the CIA and Mossad.
So this is kind of like a hollow point bullet that just explodes out the other side.
It's even more efficient than the normal hollow point. This just totally disappears.
Okay.
And then when you see the autopsy reports, then there's in a normal autopsy report, every victim has his or her autopsy, and then you see, the victim was killed by a bullet, a 8mm bullet or something like that, 22, something like that. Here it only says shot by rifle or gun. Rifle or gun. Rifle or pistol, pistol, rifle or pistol.
You try to normalize the scope of the weapon to the person that might be reading the story.
It's like if you got 5 shooters or 4 shooters, let's say 3 shooters, which several witnesses talked about 3 shooters. And these witnesses, by the way, most of them, as far as I know, have left Norway after that. We can't find them.
Huh.
If you got several different weapons that you cannot explain in the autopsy, how can somebody be hit maybe with 2-3 different calibers and so on, if there was only one shooter?
Sure.
Then also, the number of dead is just incredible, because first, in the international press, they were talking about 110. That went down to 93. Then the official one in Norway were 86. For 2 days after this whole event happened, suddenly they said, oh, very sorry, we miscounted. There were actually only 69. And they say that they managed to double count some of the bodies.
Also very unlikely.
Alan, what can I say? I mean, at least if you're, like a medical expert, learn to count. I mean, is that too much to ask for?
Yeah.
And then there were 2 families that, when they received the bodies of their loved one, these 2 families were told that their family member had drowned. But when they opened the coffin, there were bullet holes in these bodies. And then the medical expertise said, well, very sorry, we overlooked that. I mean, what is that?
I don't know what the purpose is of killing all of these people. I mean, is it just an exercise by these overlords to see if they can do that at any given moment, or was that particular attack something that was meant to usher in something else?
Here we are when it gets tricky, because it's one thing to expose what's going on a street level, but the agenda behind these things are very often more difficult to find, because very often to pull a thing like this off, there's more than one reason. It's just too much of a hassle to do one of these things for only one reason. So, but I believe that I found some of them. And Norway, before this happened, were at a situation where they were just about to pull out from the NATO bombings of Afghanistan and Libya. Had Norway pulled out, then Denmark would have followed. Had these 2 countries left NATO, the whole thing could have just gone into absolute chaos. After this happened, suddenly, boom, Norway was pronounced honorary member of NATO. And the Prime Minister of Norway, Jens Stoltenberg, who I'm going to get back to, very key person in this whole drama, he was then named the new leader of NATO. According to many researchers, the leader of NATO is a Bilderberg appointment. I mean, that is appointed by the Bilderberg Group.
Oh, sure.
And Jens Stoltenberg, is a Bilderberger as well, just as his father, Thorvald Stoltenberg, and so on. Just like you say, I put some 30 years of my life into these things, looking into so many of these major assassinations, major black ops and major false flag operations and so on. And quite often they're surrounded by Bilderbergers. Just before it happens, while it happens, and after it happens. And in this case, so when this happened, when I started looking into this, I was interested, will I see a similar pattern here? Because in that case, I will look into it. And here, just by coincidence, this very morning on the island, the former Prime Minister of Norway, Gro Harlem Brundtland, the woman, female, she's called like the mother of Norway. She's like an icon in Norway.
Okay.
She went to the island and spent quite a few hours with them before she left, about 1 hour before the bomb blew off in Oslo. Not even that, less than that.
Huh.
But when you look at that, that looks quite innocent. But when you look at who Gro Harlem Brundtland is, she is one of the architects and writers behind Agenda 21. She and Maurice Strong, both of them way up in the so-called power elite, have written this book of absolute madness. If anyone wants to see what the plan of this so-called New World Order is for the rest of us, look into
the Agenda 21.
It is like an absolute horror scenario, absolute horrendous. And one of the things also they want is depopulate the world with a lot of us. So please keep that in mind when you read and see who this woman is, Gro Harlem Brundtland. Because at times when people are killed like this, there is a ritualistic aspect to the whole thing. At least it seems like that, a very, very dark ritualistic thing. So she was there, leaving the island just before the whole thing started in Oslo. Now, Jens Stoltenberg, who's the prime minister at the time, he and Gro Harlem have been very close for many years. He is a Bilderberger, just as I said, his father as well, Thorvald Stoltenberg, involved in many, many dark things. If you remember the leader of the youth party, Eskil P, that very cowardly ran away from the island, grabbed the ferry and left without even trying to save anyone else. There were only 9 on the boat. There could have been at least 50 on board. They just passed the people swimming around in the water, took off, rammed it up on shore so it couldn't be used.
Wow.
He is, according to what I've been able to find out, he is the illegitimate son of Jens Stoltenberg.
Huh.
And after this whole thing, you have Jens Stoltenberg going out and saying, oh, this awful thing has happened now. We will not bend down. We will stand up for democracy and free speech. We will stand up and not let terror get to us. This will unite the nation.
Right.
I'm sure you've heard this.
Yeah.
Every
That's the march we're experiencing right now in Canada as well. Sure.
It's the standard procedure, standard. But anyway, after this whole thing, where Jens Stoltenberg was the one that united the country, that was looked upon as a hero, the figure that helped Norway through this trauma. Do you know, for instance, a few days after, when there was this, memorial services in one of the main churches in Oslo, the royal family was there. And Jens Stoltenberg stood up and he said, Your Majesties, Eskil, and the rest of you. Very odd that he would address Eskil Pedersen, who was a coward who left these youngsters to die, but that he would raise him like that, you know. My queen, my king, Eskil, and the rest of you. That is how he started his whole speech.
Amazing.
And also you will see he's hugging him, just like a son. And also there's many photos of Eskil Pedersen together with Thorvald Stoltenberg, who, if I'm correct, then that's actually his granddad. Do you know, when the bomb went off in Oslo, it said that the office where Jens Stoltenberg normally was, very fortunate this day though, it seems like the whole area was evacuated. There's absolutely no people there, less than a handful when the actual bomb goes off. Very, very, very few. And you can also see on different photos that the streets have been shut off. and so on. So that was very fortunate. So Jens was not at his office this day. He instead was in the house for the prime minister, just behind the castle in Oslo. When this happened, TV News called him up on the phone saying, please, can you give a comment, and so on. So he started talking about what happened. He said, we don't know what's going on. We have no idea if it's a terror attack, and so on. But we're here for the victims' families, and we will try to sort this thing out as soon as possible.
Sure.
But I used to make music for TV4 in Sweden, so I've been in the newsroom quite a lot. And when there's some kind of event happening or something like that, then the reporter says, I need to get a comment from this and this person. He then contacts the graphic department and says, please, I want a background image, maybe from the bomb explosion. Then
sure.
Give me a still photo of whoever I'm interviewing, in this case, Jens Stoltenberg. And then standard is that the graphic department, if it's live, they get the info from where the interview is done. So it says live from Ottawa or live from Stockholm or live from whatever.
Right.
Now, when this call was made, he was officially in the basement of his where the prime minister lives. But when his interview, when it goes live on TV, this is before the shooting starts on the island. It says up in the left corner, live from Utøya.
Live from the island before the island shooting was even a thing.
There you go. So I would say either the graphic artists have gone totally mad and written something totally off the rocker, or Jens Stoltenberg was on the island, because the more I look into this, the more he and a handful of other people are very central in this on the Norwegian behalf. But we're talking about the operation itself being carried out by international units. Like CIA, Mossad, MI6. I can bet you my arm that they were taking part of this whole thing, as so many other times. Because what most people are not aware of is that on a street level, the CIA, the Mossad, the MI6, the Swedish Säpo, the South African boss, and so on, they're separate units. But the higher up you get in the power pyramid, the more united they are, the more connected they are. I've got friends in the CIA who were black ops and assassins, like Chip Tatum, who speaks very openly about this after he became a whistleblower, how they use each other, how they combine efforts in different actions and so on.
Separate factions of a greater organization, and one seems like it's from a different organization, but at the top they're all linked.
This is the thing, and it's through groups like the Bilderberg Group and so on, where you can see how, if you become aware of the members, handpicked people in every single Western country that meets in deep secrecy, making an agenda for this world that we are not aware of. It's when you start seeing these key people, how they're united in the dark corridors of power, that is when things start making sense. And right after this, when Jens Stoltenberg was going through the whole drama, he had some personal phone calls from David Cameron, big time player in the elite, Bilderberger, trilateral, these things, Obama as well, and Angela Merkel from
Germany. Right.
These are key people in so many of these operations, and they were exactly the ones that the calls were made to. We're not talking that the Prime Minister's secretary spoke to David Cameron's secretary. No, we're talking about Jens calling David on his private mobile, Jens calling Angela on her private mobile.
Tell us now how it was that you were known to be who you were and visiting the island recently in July.
It was quite a very odd experience. Well, when I went there, I'm not employed by anyone. I'm totally on my own. I'm not part of an organization. I'm only trying to expose the truth to help heal this world.
And while you're doing that on lightonconspiracies.com.
That is what I'm trying. I'm trying to spread light on these dark matters, these dark corners, to get into the belly of the beast and expose what is going on.
And that's what you want to do, folks. You want to get over to lightonconspiracies.com. That's Ole's website. And he goes into great detail about this situation here and many, many others. And there's a lot of great things you can read and order there. So lightonconspiracies.com.
And if you want, I'm extremely grateful for an exchange of energy in the form of finances. I'm just an ordinary guy, but I really devote my life to try and be on location to expose what is going on. Meet up people, go out, give talks, give all of this, but I have no finances, so I'm really trying to do everything I can. If you want, please sign up for my newsletter or buy my books, or there are donations buttons and so on.
Okay, so getting back to your visit to the island and how it was interrupted.
I mentioned before my friend Hans Gorder offered to take me to the island, which I thought was amazing. We met up there. This was the day before the anniversary. We came to that small camping I mentioned before. Since it seemed like the ferry was not going that day, because when we passed it, there was you could see the ferry was down there, this small little boat, but there was like a wire across it, so it was obvious that it wasn't working. So anyway, we went to this cafeteria, a small little tourist shop type of thing, and we said, "Excuse me, but do you know the timetable for the ferry today?" The girl in the reception reacted a little bit odd, I thought, because she was like, "Oh, I don't know if it's working today or whatever." She avoided answering. So we said, "But since there's a sign outside saying boats for rent and canoes for rent," so we asked, "Can we then rent a boat, because we would like to go across to the island?" She then said, "I'm sorry, but we cannot rent it out because the guy with the license is not here today." Whatever sense that makes, I don't know. So I said, "But okay, in that case, can we rent a canoe, or actually two, because we were four people, me, my friend, the journalist, and then two new friends I had from Norway that didn't know anything about these things really."
And they also rent canoes there, so you went to that option.
So we said, let's rent a canoe, because we just wanted to go to the island to get an emotional connection with these poor victims, also to go around and get a feeling for the island, angles, distances, all of these things that is very important when you look at a crime scene and so on. So she said, "So yeah, but when?" And we said, "Well, now would be a good time to rent it." So she said, "Okay." So I got a paper that I had to fill in. So I started filling in my name and all of these things. And while I was doing that, my friend used the bathroom. And then he started talking to a girl that was in the kitchen, asking about the ferry. And she was totally different in her approach. She said, yeah, it's working. Normally you go there, they leave every half an hour and so on and so on. And so we said, great. So I told the woman in the reception that, listen, we'll go and see if the ferry is working. If not, we'll come back and we'll rent the canoes. So great. So we went there to the ferry. It's a very small little parking, and with this very small, everything is small, with this infamous...
tiny island that's so close to the mainland, yeah.
Everything is tiny. Everything is tiny. So we went down there. There was absolutely no one there, but there was quite a few officially looking vehicles. So I discreetly took some photos of them. There were police cars, there was ambulances, there were, different vans and so on. And then the ferry was there, and next to it there was a big, it looks like one of these tourist boats that goes on the rivers in Paris and Amsterdam. I think one of these that goes up and down the fjords in Norway. And then there was a little tent, like a little party tent with two people from the Red Cross sitting there, totally on their own, out in the middle of nowhere. So we went over to them and said, "Excuse me, do you know when the ferry leaves?" And they said, they answered very oddly, saying that the last one leaves the island at 6:15. I said, "But we're on the mainland. We would like to go from here to the island. So when is the..." And they said, "We don't know. It comes and goes." So okay, so we thought, great, we'll just wait. So we were standing there waiting for, we didn't know what. while looking at the island, while taking some photos of the ferry and so on. And then I think maybe 15 minutes later or something like, suddenly out of this this beautiful wooden boat, there were 3 people jumping out, young people in, it looked like wetsuits, and at least one of them had a big headset on. And they ran across the bridge, jumped into like a very powerful little rubber boat, one of these things that you can stand up in, and just took off, full speed ahead towards the island. So we thought, my God, something happened on the island, maybe a heart attack, or I don't know. But there was for some reason they had to leave in a hurry. Mm-hmm. So I thought, excellent, because that made it possible for me to film them going across to the island, so I could time exactly how fast can you get to the island. It took more or less exactly 1 minute. The boat then turned around and came full speed back towards us. And out of that rubber boat jumped 2 police officers. These 2 police officers I mentioned before came running across and stood right in front of us. Wow. 1 male, 1 female. The guy was early 30s, I think, very well built, military type looking guy, armed, which is new in Norway. And he said, hello, what are you doing here? Please identify yourself. And in my world, as soon as a normal person had to identify himself anywhere, that is the first sign of a police state. So I'm totally against these things when they. So anyway, my friend Hans Gorder, he said, but why do we have to identify ourselves? We're standing here, public space. We're just waiting for the boat. Why? And the police officer said, listen, I'm not up for games. Just identify yourself.
Right.
So he said, but are we suspected of anything? Why? And then the police officer said, you and I over there. So he walked away with him while he told his female colleague, please check these 3 out. So my 2 Norwegian friends gave their ID, and I had my passport in my pocket, but I thought I'm not going to show that just out of the principle. So I gave him a little insurance card or something like that with my name on it. Say, here. And she said, but why don't you have an ID on you? I said, I'm in a free country on a public space. I did not expect to have to show it. Anyway, so after a few minutes, this other police officer came back. He checked our names. He went on the radio for a minute or so, and then he came back, stood right in front of me and said, Ole Dammegard, a decision has been taken for you. I can't remember who had taken that decision, but you are not welcome here today or tomorrow. We know that you have given a talk in Oslo about assassinations and that you have theories about several of them being connected. It is okay to have opinions about these things, but they're not welcome here. We have checked with Danish and Norwegian police. They have nothing on you, so you are free to go or you will be arrested.
Great.
Sometimes in this situation I get scared, but this time I felt very, very balanced. So I was just looking into his eyes. And then I said, in that case, can I suggest that you, since you are protecting an event that, if I'm correct, has a very dark agenda behind it, since you're protecting that from normal people like myself, I would like to suggest that you start studying this thing so that you know what you're doing, more or less. But that was like talking to a wall. It was totally stupid even trying. Then my friend Hans Gorder, he said, but now you know our names. Please, you tell us yours. And the police said, absolutely not. Then he said, but do you mind if I take a photo of us together? So he went to sort of like take a selfie of the 2 of them. And the police officer just took a step back and said, back off, absolutely not. He said, the only thing I give is my service number. And then he said, Delta 031. That hit me like a sledgehammer between the eyes, because I thought, oh, Delta 031. These are the Delta numbers are exactly from when the operation took part itself. There were Delta 03, Delta 04, and Delta 05 with some of the units. And Delta 031 could very well be the commander, or at least one in the Delta 03 unit. So suddenly I was either it was, I mean, what are the chances that a normal police officer have the service number Delta 031? The only police officers I've ever looked upon when it comes to these type of things, it's been a number of a series of letters and then a number. But here, Delta 031. So suddenly I felt that maybe I'm standing looking straight into the eyes of one of the guys that were part of this whole operation and now is part of covering it up or protecting it.
And they're particularly sensitive on an anniversary kind of time frame.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a strange experience, to say the least.
Well, I'm glad you weren't arrested.
So am I.
I mean, they could just throw you away, rendition, you know. Whatever.
Exactly, but sometimes that is necessary as well. I mean, it's so weird because speaking the truth has become the new act of terrorism. You know, looking for the truth is now looked upon as a threat against national security. And I think it's very high time for us to turn this thing around.
There's been the same kind of thing in Canada since the Ottawa attack of 2014 in October. I dread the rolling into the anniversary of that and what kind of nonsense they're going to trot out. The shootings took place between the 20th and 29th. To my knowledge, I've not been able to find one reference in whether we should beef up security, whether we shouldn't beef up security, and nowhere has it been mentioned that there was a military operation going on at the same time called Operation Determined Dragon? Doesn't get mentioned by anyone anywhere. And when you do say it, they think you're nuts. You know, I mean, Operation Dragon, what are you talking about? It sounds crazy, but it's still on the website. It's still on the Canadian Forces website that this was a thing that did happen at that time frame. But it's amazing how it doesn't get discussed in the halls of power or in the newspapers, for that matter.
I would say there's a reason for that.
People don't even know what's happening with it.
But I'll be very happy in another interview to go into great details about the Ottawa shooting, because that is such a fake one. Fake event.
How do they get someone like an Anders Breivik to basically forfeit his freedom, or a Timothy McVeigh to be the focal point, the patsy, the main shooter, or one of the people that has to take the entire brunt of the operation? He is, I believe anyway, doing time. He is probably locked up for a good long time, if not forever. How do they line these people up? Are you saying Anders Breivik was a Delta team member himself, or how does this kind of thing work?
With Anders Breivik, I'm not totally sure yet. I'm going to find out, but it's not easy. Absolutely not a Delta team member. That's quite an interesting take on the whole thing. But he is what is called a patsy, somebody who's there just to take the fall. Yeah. You know, it's the same with Timothy McVeigh, same with Lee Harvey Oswald, same with Sirhan. It's the same. And I would say that when they carry these operations out, the people carrying them out, the ones that do the actual killing, if that is what is going on, these are professionals, mercenaries, skilled killers. And the ones that take the fall for it are just sometimes mind-controlled patsies. Other times they're just there to get killed so that they can be blamed for it, because this is the whole thing. They want them alone and crazy. The reason why they want them alone is because then there's, by law, no conspiracy. If the guy is killed or if he claims that he's guilty, then case closed. Thank you, folks. Goodbye and go home.
But if there's a taste of someone else being involved, they have to do an investigation, and then that's just inherently going to make it more messy and more difficult to conceal, right?
Exactly. It's a totally different ballgame if there is more than one involved. And the reason why they want them crazy is because there was no motive. He was just crazy.
Wow.
That's it. So this is what you see again and again. And then if you're a Muslim, then the one they're blaming it for, Muslim, the only thing you have to say is he's an extremist. Boom, that's it, case closed, thank you, and back to sleep. People buy it right off. And but I would love to do one on the Ottawa one, because that is such a fake event.
I'd love to hear anything you have to say about it.
I can say that after all of these years, and also spending quite a lot of time with Chip Tatum, who If people don't know who he is, please go to chiptatum.com. That's CHIPTATUM.
Yeah, he's been on the show too. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Because he was a deep cover agent for 25 years, CIA. He was a black op assassin. He was one of the Night Stalker pilots, the black helicopter pilots. He was one of the pilots in the Iran-Contra scandal, taking weapons out from the U.S. and bringing back tons and tons of cocaine. He was also the commander of Pegasus, which was an ultra-secret hit team under the direct control of George Bush Sr. They carried out at least 17 operations international and so on. And he's been part of so-called false flag operations during his career. He's worked for all the presidents directly under them, on a speaking level, with Nixon all the way up until George Bush Sr. So this is the real deal.
Yeah. So what kind of things can you tell us about the Ottawa shooting right now that I haven't already sort of ripped apart on the show? But
can I just go back to Chip? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
But Alan, what we were talking about and what I suggested was that, is it possible that we are looking at the same team of crisis actors, military advisors, makeup artists, marketing agency people for slogans and all of these things after these so-called events, being transported from country to country like a Rocky Horror show on a global tour, that is being transported in NATO army planes or American army planes from airbase to airbase, country to country? Is it possible that we're seeing the same people running around in SWAT team uniforms in Paris, as in Copenhagen, as in Ottawa, as in Sydney, and so on? He said, it's not only possible, it is plausible. His words. And I would very much suggest this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the same team. We're looking at the same theater play being carried out right in front of our eyes, but being told this is a totally separate event. This is a totally separate event. This is a totally separate event. The world is crazy. It's filled with mad Islamic extremists that want to blow you up and kill you and all of these things. I would say absolutely not. We're looking at a very, very small group that is being transported from country to country, carrying this whole thing out according to the old Roman template: problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah.
They secretly create a problem. The whole idea is they can only control you through fear. So they need to keep us fearful. They secretly create a problem, a terror act, a bomb, a virus infection, a financial scare, whatever. But it needs to be something that gets us afraid, to get the emotion from us. Oh my God, help me, help me, help me. And then we, instead of using our brain, they hit us emotionally, so we go, oh my God, with all these dead women and children, never old guys or cows that they blown up or something like that. Women, children, nuns, nurses, mercenaries, no, not mercenaries, missionaries or priests. These are the ingredients. They have them before, after, or in the middle and so on. But for us to go emotional, oh my God, something needs to be done, save me, and then we turn towards the one that we think we elected to solve these problems, not understanding that they're the ones who created the problem. And their solution every single time is more and more militarized police, more and more surveillance, more and more. You pay billions and billions and billions for more militarized super cop cyberspace into blah, 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 blah.
What's scary about that is that once upon a time, people would doubt that. People would say, oh, no, that can't possibly be the thing. We don't really want that. But Donald Trump is saying, I'm telling you what, when I get to be the president, I'm going to put so much money into the military, you're not going to believe it. It's going to be fantastic. There's no way anyone's going to mess with us. And these people are cheering. They're going insane with glee that this is something that's happened. This is a complete turnaround from how people used to feel about that kind of thing.
What people don't understand is that the U.S. is the terrorist bully of the world. This is Chip Tatum's words.
Yeah.
The U.S. got more military power than the rest of the world together, as far as I know.
Yeah, so far they do, yeah. And it hasn't seemed to help them win everywhere.
No, but the thing is they do not want to win. They want to continue. That's why the war on terror is the perfect one, because what does that mean? You can just keep it going.
Sure, they want to continue, but they portray it as, we just need to do this little bit more and then we'll be victorious, okay? And everyone says, yeah, and then that doesn't work, and they keep just rolling that same trope.
True.
Because of the whole Ottawa shooting thing and what happened and what wasn't talked about, the next day, of course, the legislation was ready to bring in to protect us from this ever happening again.
You know the meaning of government? It comes from governmente, meaning control the mind control. I think when we look at the government, we're giving away our own power. I don't know about the situation in Canada so much on the political scene, because I normally don't look into it, because nowadays the so-called elite behind the New World Order, they have worked for so many years to centralize the power to fewer and fewer, both globally and in every single country. And one of the things they focus on is controlled opposition as well. Their idea is the system should look like the two major parties, doesn't matter what country you go to, where they use the same system. Two major parties, left, right, or whatever they call them, Republican, Democrats. And then you have a small few parties in the middle for people who can't really make up their mind. But all of it is connected to the same body. So it's like, do you want to take my left hand or my right hand? Or what do you want to do? Yeah. You have an option. You have the freedom to choose whatever you want, as long as you choose me. Yeah. And it's called democracy. So I don't even look at these people. I've never voted in my whole life. I've devoted my life to finding out the truth. Never voted, never looked into normal politics, because to me, the more I've listened into it, it's just like, I know they will tell me whatever I want to hear. Change. It will be better. Freedom, equal rights for everyone, except after the election, I will do whatever I please anyway. So please elect me, and I will keep lying. And then I will tell you whatever you want to hear until I am in so-called power, funded by the same people behind the structure. And then as soon as I'm in, I will go there and do their agenda, totally rape and plunder you. And in the meantime, I will put on a nice smile and just be a nice front figure that can say things on TV that you want to hear from a teleprompter. That is the political system in my world. People come in with very good intention, I think, on a low level. But once you get up to that level, they're gone.
It's a locked and loaded game.
It's like you look at Jeb Bush or Hillary Clinton. It's like, how do you want to shoot yourself, from the right or the left? I mean, both of them are super criminals. I mean, I know from a fact that both of them are involved in multiple murders, incredible drug deal scandals, lots and lots of fraud coming from especially the Bush family, where it's just like, oh my, when you look into it, it's just like your head want to blow up, the level of criminality of that family. And Hillary, Bill Clinton's partner or wife, they come from the same type of thing, where it was through the Iran-Contra scandal, where the whole thing with drugs coming into Arkansas and Mena, right, where Chip Tatum was one of the pilots flying these tons of drugs in, where Bill at that time was a very unknown governor of that state, receiving it personally, helping to deliver and distribute all of these tons of drugs into the states with the idea to make absolute bundles, at the same time destabilize the American society, get the crime rate up while you pull down pull away the funds from the police, so the crimes will just skyrocket, pump in weapons into societies so that the minorities will start killing each other. At the same time, make heavy investment in privately owned prisons.
I would love to speak with you at some time in the future about the Ottawa shooting and what you know about it, because not a lot of people here seem to know much other than what the official story has been.
Well, in that case, you're in for a surprise. I'll tell you that one. So anytime you want, just let me know, and I'll be happy to get back.
Okay, well, Ole Dammegard, once again, light on conspiracies. Let's keep an eye out for the same kind of MO, folks. If the systems that are designed to be there, like the cameras, like the batteries in the car, like the folks who are, it is their job to respond to these activities. When they're not available and these situations arise, you have to ask questions. Don't just leave it to Ole to ask these questions. Obviously, we're being fooled on a huge level most of the time. It's
time to wake up. And the thing is, most of these things are no-brainers. They really, once you look at them, if it was not pumped out through media, the official story, you would never buy it. You would just, if I were telling you that story, if I said, I'm going to make a film script about a terror event in Oslo, I'd just make it up, and I would put that in the script, you would laugh your head off saying, like, come on, I mean, nobody would buy this crap, go home, do it, make it better. But since this is played out on an official media scenery right in front of us, being repeated again and 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 again, we believe it.
Yeah. That would be an interesting exercise, to write a movie that contains as many implausible facts and just have that movie completely shredded by the critics as thoroughly implausible. Why would they be able to do that with a movie review? But when it's happening in real life, they just go along with it.
Alan, I'll give you this one.
Okay.
A plane crashes into a war center. It's a big 757. This is just, I'm just making this up as a fantasy. This 757 disappears into a hole the size of a missile. Okay. Engines, no scrap, no passenger, no bags, nothing is found. Okay. And then when people start asking questions, how the hell could a massive big plane like that disappear into a hole like that? Then I'll just say it evaporated due to high heat. 2 6-ton engines made of titanium, partly. Okay. That is the official story of what happened in Pentagon.
Yeah.
It vaporized due to high heat. It's like, would be on the same level of logic. Like if I was drunk one day and I came home and I lost my car, I didn't know what I'd done with it, and I called my insurance company saying, well, my car is gone. And they say, well, okay, what happened? Well, I reversed into the wall and the friction made the car vaporize. I'm asking you, would they pay you? Would they pay you?
Yeah, no.
I dare to say they would not.
Yeah.
But here is the same logic.
On a much larger scale, and everybody buys it. Yeah.
You got Sirhan, the guy who's said to have shot Robert Kennedy. He had a revolver with eight bullets. Okay. He fired them. As soon as he started firing, people jumped him, wrestled him down on a steam table, took the gun away from him. When you hear the sound recordings, there's somewhere between 13 and 14 shots fired. He had 8. Okay. Makes a bit of a mystery. How did he manage to reload and keep firing while being, when 15 people are on top of him and they've taken the gun away? At no time was he anywhere else than straight in front of Robert Kennedy, no less than a yard and a half. No, what do you call that? 5 feet, something like that.
Sure.
So, of course, Robert Kennedy was hit all times straight from the front. All the time straight from the back and to the right. Point blank, the last bullet entered his skull behind his right ear, so close that it burned away hair from his head. It was a point blank. The gun itself was pressed against his skull when it was fired.
Wow.
So who was standing behind and to the right? Is that too much to ask for? But no, we look Sirhan. He's still rotting away to this day, totally innocent. And there's so many of them. The so-called elite do not respect us. They do not treat us with a lot of respect. My question is, do we deserve that respect? I think not, because if you are able to pull the same stunt off again and again and again and again and again with the same explanations on a level that my 5-year-old would just say, Mike, it doesn't make sense, Dad, but we're buying it. I mean, do we deserve the respect? I think not. But it's time now to stop this. It is time to stop it. And if I can suggest one thing,
sure,
is that when it comes to false flag operations, black ops, we're back to the problem reaction solution. So many of these things are nowadays, it's like a film set. It is not the real thing that is being carried out. What happened in Ottawa, I will show it very clearly to you next time, that the official story is an absolute lie. But one of the main ingredients in these false flag that are set up events, just like Charlie Hebdo, the one in Copenhagen, that I was publicly able to predict 1 month before it happened on the hour. Why? Because I had a crystal ball? No, because I know how they do it. I know how they think and I know how they plan. So I see the signs. So one of the main ingredients is a drill. The drill is there to get vehicles in position, explosives in position, the patsy in there so he can get killed or blamed or whatever, and so on, without normal people interfering. That is why the drill is there, and the scenario is more or less always identical to what they then pull off as the real thing. So my idea is to, the next time anyone hears about a drill in your neighborhood, in your town, in wherever it is, go there. Go before it's supposed to happen and film, bring your friends and family, cameras, video cameras, as many as you can, and start filming the people while they're setting it up. It will look more or less like a film set. Streets will be shut off. There will be vehicles, people in uniforms or strange clothes, lighting maybe, cameras, all of these things that is being set up. Then go there and film these guys. Film them while they're setting it up and make it very, very obvious to them that they are being observed. In this way, there is a possible total non-violent way of exposing it before it even happens and make it stop. Give them cold feet so that we're telling them, we're sending them the message, don't you even think of it. If you pull that trigger, we know even before you do it. There's even an app nowadays for your mobile called, I think it's called Bamboozle or something like that can make you stream live to YouTube while you film.
That's right.
So this would be a perfect situation to do a thing like that, because they might approach you. So while you're filming, it would be great to get it up live on YouTube while it happens. For your protection as well.
That should be done. I wish I'd known there was this Operation Determined Dragon in Canada before the October shooting, or I might have done the very same thing.
But there's so many of these going on nowadays, so please go there, do it the next time you even hear about a thing like that. And let's put an end to this madness.
That's great advice, Ole. Thank you so much for coming on.
For sure. My absolute pleasure.
Be well.
You too.
Be sure to subscribe to Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park on iTunes and to our YouTube channel. If you want to support the show and help create more episodes, you can become a patron at patreon.com/conspiracyqueries. We appreciate your feedback, so send us comments, complaints, or queries of your own to conspiracyqueries@gmail.com, or you can post them on our website at conspiracyqueries.com. Thanks for listening.